So in this video, we're going to take a quick moment and go back and look at some other types of reflections we could do. And this time it's over maybe some lines that aren't as familiar to us, but we can still follow a lot of the same rules. So the first thing we're going to do is remind you of which lines go with which. So if we look at this particular question, we have a vertical line going through x equals 2, which means this is the equation. This line's equation is x equals 2. We also have horizontal lines. As a reminder, a horizontal line, this is going through the point on the y-axis of 4. So that would be the line y equals 4. Right? Here we're going through the y-axis at the point 0, 2. So this would be the line y equals 2. And then here's a vertical line going through the x-axis at negative 3, which means this is the equation of x equals negative 3. So, as a quick reminder, a horizontal line versus a vertical line. So a horizontal line has the equation y equals some number versus a vertical line should be x equals just some number. And so what we're going to end up doing with this is we're going to start looking at some examples where we're going to try to figure out what our line of reflection is and then naming it. So as you can see here, we should be able to at this point recognize that the black figure is the pre-image and the image is in blue. If you look very carefully, you can see those primes. So we start kind of looking through this thing and trying to figure out, okay, well, which way did this thing flip? And if you look, right, F down to F prime that way, and K prime and K. So it looks like this thing is flipping. Right? We have a vertical reflection. Well, if it's flipped up and down, that means that the mirror should be kind of like the x-axis, except on the x-axis it's not flipping over this line down here. It's flipping over a line that's been shifted up. So if we look carefully, this thing's actually flipping over this blue line right here. Well, what we're going to ask you to do, once you've drawn that line, if you look, okay, so it's a horizontal line, right? So we've got a mirror that's horizontal. And so if you remember back to the examples we just did, a horizontal line is y equals a number, and that goes through y at 2. So that's the line of reflection. Here we have a diagonal reflection, right? If you look very, very carefully, right? T and T prime, U and U prime, it looks like it's a diagonal reflection. Well, that's probably an indicator, right? So we have a diagonal reflection, which should tell us that our mirror is also diagonal. A great way to find these mirrors sometimes too is to find where points match. So you can see that D and D prime are together and V and V prime are together. If we think back about some of the reflections we have already done by hand, usually where those 2 points touch, that's where the mirror goes. Think back to the very first day with reflections. If the original and the prime matched up, that green line went right through them. So here all of a sudden we can see V and V prime and D prime matching up together, which means between those 2 points, if you get yourself a straight edge, you can draw that line of reflection. A little bit off there, but there's my line of reflection. And if we think back about the notes we've already done and then on the previous video, that's actually the line y equals negative x. That's that diagonal line going left to right. With the next example, it looks like, again, our reflection, we flip this thing up. So we have a vertical reflection, which tells me that the mirror must be horizontal. Now this one is probably a little bit easier to see. We can see R is one below the axis. R prime is one above the axis. Well, that tells me something right there. That tells me the x-axis is the actual mirror. So there's our line of reflection, and we've reflected over the x-axis. Here we've got from K to K prime, from P to P prime, from R to R prime. Well, those are horizontal reflections. So now all of a sudden we've got a horizontal reflection, which means our mirror should be vertical. And although we don't have actual points where the two figures touch, that's a key component for you guys. You can see where the blue and the black touch. That's actually going to be, guys, that's going to be where your line of reflection goes. Another way to look at it, well, from K to K prime, that looks like it's a gap of 4. If we think back to, right, the pre-image to the mirror should be equal to the mirror over to the image. We saw that first day with reflections. Well, another way to think about that is the mirror is in the middle. Okay? So take this concept, the mirror is in the middle, right back up here. Well, if K and K prime are 4 apart, that means the middle of 4 is 2. Go 2 away from each of those, and you're right there. R and R prime are 2 apart, right? There's a gap of 2. Well, what's the middle of 2? That's 1. So go to the point that's 1 apart. And all of a sudden you can see all these points are starting to line up on this vertical line. Well, go back to the kind of the warm-up on this video. The vertical line was always x equals, and that goes through x at negative 30. Two more examples, right? It does look like U prime to U and P to P prime, A to A prime, and H to H prime as we look at this, right? If we start matching these things up, we can see this looks like a horizontal reflection, which tells us that we have a vertical mirror. And again, if we know the mirror is right in the middle, let's think about some of these gaps. Well, from P to P prime, that's a gap of 2. Half of that would mean that the mirror is right there. And all of a sudden, this should be a very familiar mirror to us. Go right down the middle of those two figures, and that's a reflection across the y-axis. And one more example. Here again, U to U prime, H to H prime, Z to Z prime. Now all of a sudden, we're flipping diagonally. We got 2 lines. It's either y equals x or y equals negative x. Well, the way this is playing out, it looks like there's a gap of 2 boxes from U to U prime, which means right in the middle, 1 box away. So from H down to H prime, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes. So what's right in the middle of 5 would be 2.5, which means it should be sitting, right? Kind of right there in the middle of that box. So because it's a diagonal reflection, really at the end of the day, guys, what we want you to see, since it's a diagonal reflection, we're going to have a diagonal mirror. And if we can recognize this one, that'd be awesome. That's actually the line y equals x. So it's one thing to recognize them. On the previous page, it's going to ask you to actually do some reflections across those lines, a few of those. So y equals negative 2. Remember, y equals, that's a horizontal line. So that goes through 2 up here. Oh, excuse me, negative 2. That means this is your line of reflection. The tricky part here is we're so used to using the axes that sometimes we forget if the mirror moves. But it's the same kind of rules, right? Q is 2 below the line, which means Q prime is 2 above. I'm going to call that x. X is 1, 2, 3 below, which means x prime 3 above. I is on the line, so there's I prime. And E is 1 below the line, so we'll go 1 above for E, and then connect the points. The x-axis we've done a lot, but do keep in mind that the x-axis is this one right here. So we just got to figure out how far to the line and then how far below. Y equals negative x, as a reminder to you guys, y equals negative x is the diagonal line. It kind of goes downhill, if you want to think about that, right? It's a negative. So I'll finish this one really quickly for you. J looks like you go across half a box, which means there's J prime. A, you want to cross a whole box. So again, diagonal mirror means we're moving diagonal. S goes across 1, 2, 3 boxes, so we'll go across 1, 2, 3 boxes. And T, you went across 1 box, another half. So that's what, cut off a little bit. Excuse me, guys. Got the big erase wrong, but there's what your new figure there should look like, and there's t prime. Here we go, y equals -1. Y equals, that's a horizontal line through the along the y-axis at -1. So go to -1 on the y-axis. Draw my line of reflection. So this is one of those that's going to look like kind of a jarbled mess, if you will, but same rules apply, right? L is currently 1 below the line, which means L prime will be 1 above. B is 2 below, which means B prime will be 2 above. Now, I'm not counting from the axis. I'm counting, right? I'm counting to the blue line right there, because that's my mirror. I'm not using the axis. I'm using that blue line. Looks like I is 1, 2, 3 above the blue line, so I prime should be 3 below the blue line. W is 1, 2, 3, 4 to the line, so W prime 4 below the blue line, not the axis. And although this is going to look kind of crazy, kind of hard to see, but that's the idea. Right, we're going to use the blue line. Might be a good idea to actually get yourself a different color pencil or marker. X equals -3. Remember, x equals a number is a vertical line at -3. So here we go to x equals -3 on the x-axis. And again, this one's going to be kind of a mess because it goes right through the middle of the figure, but same rules apply. How far is it from S to the blue line? Well, that's 1 box, which means S prime is 1 box the other way. W is 1 to the right, which means W prime is 1 to the left. P, this is 1 to the line, which means P prime will be 1 to the line in the other direction. And from I, it looks like I to the line, so I is 2 to the left, which means I prime will be 2 to the right by the time we connect everything. That's what my new image will look like. And then one last one to remind you of the line y equals x. Again, that's that diagonal line that kind of goes uphill if you want to think about it that way. So take a moment. L is 1 block away, so we go across 1 block. Diagonal mirror, remember, move diagonally. H, we had to go across 1, 2.5 blocks. So there's the half, and 1, 2, there's H prime. Looks like P, you want to cross, the line got a little bit sloppy, so straight edges might be important for us, guys, but if you look carefully, P, we should have gone across 1 box, so there's P prime, and Q, went across 1.5, so we go across 1.5, and then P went to Q, Q went to H, so got a little bit off right there, but I'm not sure what my pen is doing to me here, guys. There it goes. But that's what the image should look like once you do a reflection across y equals x.